Mm-hmm.
We are live. Joey, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. 9th episode. This is a special one for me because I got one of my buddies on, who I came crawling into recovery in August 2009, and Rob came crawling in a few days after, and so
That's amazing.
we're walking miracles, and he would probably be able to give everybody here, a really good glimpse of what's possible, in recovery, and how, you could really go from barely surviving to thriving.
That's amazing. So, guys, this is episode 9 of Own Your Gifts. This is really just a show talking about recovery. One of the things that's been coming off all these episodes lately, Joey's been getting some amazing feedback. It's amazing to have everyone join us, and it's amazing to be able to share the message of recovery. And I know that one thing that I've learned is that not everyone can engage, but they're out there watching. So I think it's really important we are here sharing that message. And today to talk about functional health and fitness and recovery, that mind, body, and soul element is really exciting for me. So, guys, if you're joining us today for the first time, please let us know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you're joining us again on a weekly basis, we really appreciate having you. Let's just introduce our guest today, Rob. Welcome, Rob.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. A lot better now, man. This is my favorite time of the week.
Yeah, I'm really good, Rob. I've just I love today. I love, if I can just tell the audience, I heard you own a gym. How do you get any better than that? Life is if you want to know something, Rob, I live next door to my gym, so it's probably one step back from owning a gym.
That's probably better, because then you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, you're probably right, mate. You're probably right. So it's one of the things that really lifts my spirits, and one of the things I've learned throughout my journey of recovery is that importance for me to sort of really get my spirit pumping with some exercise. So really look forward to talking about some of that stuff with you today, mate.
Yeah. It's a big topic that I talk when I speak to the kids a lot, or adults. It's like you hear people say, well, that's not my thing. That's like having a car and not putting gas in it. It's like,
yes,
if you want to think properly, if you want to move properly, if you want to be you can't. I don't believe that you can be spiritually sound if you're not living a healthier lifestyle. You can think great and want to do these things, but then to go to perform it, recovery for me is all about action. We talk a lot in recovery, but it's about what you do when the camera shuts off. It's what you do when nobody's looking. It's how far do you truly want to test yourself? And you said you were on my Facebook prior. You'll see I test myself. I put myself in those worst case scenarios, because Joey knows this, but the first 9 months of my life left me, the bank came and took everything, and my dad died. And in that time, it was like, okay, I don't think that there's much more that could possibly happen that could derail me. Now what? Sure. And for me, I was pissed at God, so I quit praying to him. I knew if there was a heaven, my dad was there. And if he was there, he was probably running the show anyways. So I was like, gave the middle finger to the big man, and I started praying to my dad. And eventually it all became the same thing. But the harder we push, for me, I went right into, we were smoking cigarettes still in recovery and all that. And it was like 4 days after my dad died, I had been running a relay race. It's called Ragnar here in the US. And you have three different legs that you run. And I wasn't going to do the race. And my family's like, oh, your dad would want you to run it and blah, blah, blah. So I went out and I ran my first run, and I'm pretty much crying the entire time. I did not want to be there.
Yep.
And then the second run was at 2:00 in the morning. It was a 10-mile run. It's cold outside. And I'm like, dude, I do not want to do this. And my wife at the time, she's like, you know what, just go. And I left on that run and I was bawling my eyes out. And then I felt this overwhelming feeling like my dad was with me. And I like looked over and I felt like I saw the spirit of him jogging with me. And so, as addicts do, we overdo everything we love. And I loved my dad. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to be spiritually broken down. I got to be physically broken down to see my dad. So I went from a couch surfer to an ultra marathoner overnight. I ran 13 ultra marathons in that next year, trying to get that same experience that never happened again, just so you know. But that was really started me on my journey into health and wellness. So I'm really excited to dive into that. But that's kind of my little cramp. And I've always been an athlete, but that's seasonal as a kid. Or if I'm a talented athlete, I don't have to work as hard and I can go out and play ball with my friends or soccer or whatever and still be pretty good. But in recovery, man, life is a tricky bugger. And so we can get into it more, but I went into the world of cage fighting at the age of 35 and have been on this wild ride ever since. So we'll get into that. But I just think that health and wellness it's the pillar. Like you've got to start with that. Anybody can do that.
For sure, mate. That's really it's great to hear. I can't believe that you went from hating it so much and not wanting to participate to just jumping into it to running 10 ultra marathons. What's an ultra marathon? How long? 10 miles, is it?
It's anything over 26.2 miles.
What?
So that'd be over a 50K.
I'll be struggling to drive that.
Yeah, Joey knows when I came crawling into rehab, I was literally crawling. I weighed like 128 pounds. I was all tweaked out. It was I'm an extremist to say the least.
Can I just add, Joey, before we hear from you that and just to people out there, like, and this is absolutely spins me out, and I touch on this a lot, is that because with all of our guests seem to be people who got clean around about August, September 2009. So the three of us share a very similar clean date. I mean, not that time exactly matters, but I mean, certainly, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be, it does matter as well at the same time, you know? So
yeah, for sure.
How does the universe keep bringing us together? I just think it's just spins me out, and it just shows that recovery is possible, and also that, you know, it sounds like you kind of enjoy life now too, Rob, and I think that's amazing, you know?
Yeah, it's been fun. I think the one thing that people forget to change in their recovery is their relationship with pain, and they want to avoid it.
Yeah.
I was speaking today at a junior high, and one of the questions was, why is it so hard to avoid mental health issues? I said, you just answered it. You try to avoid it.
Yeah.
If you take life head on, you don't have to avoid anything. Life just happens and it feels good. The good brings lessons, the bad brings lessons, and you can kind of just sit at your dinner table with all of them and enjoy it. I don't hide from anything anymore. So part of the fitness for me is being able to do hard things in a safe environment, getting beat up on purpose so that when the world hits, like, that's a Monday for me. You got to hit pretty dang hard to derail me these days. So, and Joey, man, it is so good to see you. And I don't know if your listeners know, but you were a big fella. And looking at you right now, like, I have so much joy in my heart seeing you healthy and happy. Man, it's a
miracle, man. And it's interesting that you were talking about like you were speaking to the younger people today, and you were trying to sell them an idea that I think is only learned in hindsight and through experiences. It's really difficult for me, for somebody to come up to me if I'm in pain, whether that be mental pain, emotional pain, physical pain, blocked spiritually, to sell me the idea that this pain when you move through this plains, it's going to take you higher and you're going to grow. And not only that, you're going to have it as experience to help somebody along the same path. Like people have been telling me that my whole life, but like, that's one of the blessings of the type of life that we chose to live. Some of us were, I'm not saying that some of us weren't deal really bad hands or didn't have any legitimate trauma or challenges or difficulties. Everybody has their own brand of challenges. But, you know, because I know what it's like to be completely defeated, frozen, having no hope, feeling worthless, and not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel, like, in order for me to understand how, like, if there was no way I would be able to grasp that somehow that was serving me, and that it would not only serve me, it would serve others in the future. So like, we can talk about it and we can understand it, but moving that information from your head to your heart requires another thing that you mentioned, Rob, is moving your hands and your feet in action and actually having life experiences with it, which that's what wisdom is. Like, knowledge and wisdom are two separate things separated by life experiences. So, you know, it's a tough sell, but it is the truth. And I need to remind myself of that truth when I'm in a situation that is less than desirable or inconvenient or painful, whether it's physically painful or somebody I love is suffering or my heart is suffering. Like, you know, I need to be really conscious and remember the truth is that, like, I need to look at that and know that that is somehow serving me and making me fit of being of service to others. And that's sometimes it gets away from me. You know, I'm pretty practiced in it of seeing adversity and trying to find the lesson, the blessing, and the meaning in it. But it definitely doesn't come second nature to me. And it took a lot of repetitive actions on a day-to-day basis in order to get that type of awareness. But yeah, my story was a little different. Like, I didn't go from, you know, being 9 months sober to running ultra marathon and doing hard things. I took a different path. I took the path of least resistance. And I like to say I got really comfortable in what I call warm bath activities, which is basically doing nothing outside of my comfort zone and seeking comfort and what ultimately ended up being just as harmful as any type of other type of substance or behavior, addictive behavior in my life, which was food. And when I got sober in 2009, I went from, I don't know, I was like 230, 240 maybe when I got sober, and I'm close to that now. I'm a lot healthier 240 now. I mean, I look like I got hit by a truck, rightfully so. I was living on the street and I was in active addiction for 2 decades. But, you know, I took the comfortable way and I tried to kill myself with food, and I got really comfortable in self-pity and victimhood. And I was really scared to actually live. I was never really scared to die. I was scared to actually live. And I hit another bottom in recovery. I was clean and sober. I was, you know, working a program of recovery. I was in community with people, you know, with a similar problem and a similar solution. And I was helping people in that area, but I was still dying. I was still, you know, killing myself. And, you know, the pieces that were missing were mindset pieces and physiology, you know. And I, you know, when you're 415 pounds and you could barely get to the end of the driveway, you know, that's a huge mountain to climb. And so I had to really take it into smallest bites possible, which is how any, like, you know, you've heard the expression, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. It was like that. And, you know, I started really small, and I had to do it an hour at a time, a day at a time, just like we do in recovery. You know, it's, I started by drinking 60 ounces of water a day and putting on my shoes and getting to the end of the driveway. That's where it started. But, you know, little tiny steps taken over and over and over again, and that are slightly outside of your comfort zone, compounded and aggregated over a time add up to a lot. So I've been able to lose 178 pounds. I'm healthier than I ever was in my life, and I'm 48 years old. And I took 0 large steps. I took 0 leaps. I did not leap into a marathon. I did not leap into a gym. I didn't do any of that. I took lots of little tiny small steps that added up. And I started building some really good healthy habits. And I'm not unique. Like, I'm not any more disciplined than the next person. I'm just a human. So it's possible for anybody. But the physiological piece, the way I see it, there's several ways to change our state of mind. And one is physiologically. The other one is what we focus on. And then it's what meaning we place to things in life. And our language, most importantly, how we speak to ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about how physiology works on healing our brain and firing all those chemicals that really, things like addiction and depression and all that stuff really deplete. So what do you have to say, Danny?
Look, I relate to that too. It took me a little while to get it, you know, like, and let me say, like, stuffing my face with chocolate and food and feeling good, like, I really liked it, you know, like, I know there's some negatives to it too, but I really fucking enjoyed stuffing my face. Like, sugar is my thing, you know, and anyway, but and I don't know what you think, Rob, but I heard at a couple of years clean, I was getting a bit sluggish. I was a bit lethargic, and I heard that muscle burns fat. And I know I've said this before. I thought, all right, fuck it, I can maybe just get muscly instead of stop eating and get muscly, and that'll burn the fat. But in that process, I started, I guess, to take those small steps, Joey. Like you said, the gym was about 2 kilometers away from my house, and actually I didn't have a driver's license. I was suspended still for 5 years when I was in recovery. So and my work was over that way as well. So I started walking to the gym 3 days a week, and I just start with 20 minutes at the gym. And honestly, it took me a year before I had a regular pattern. But then, let's just say at 12 months, something switched. I seen a little bit of a transformation in my body, and I'd become a little more confident at the gym, because that's something that holds me back, you know, comparing ourselves to others in the beginning. And me too, I'm quite a friendly guy, and I like to say hello to people. So I started knowing people at the gym. All these factors made me want to be there so much more. And I went from, you know, like struggling to get 1 day a week to almost to 6 days a week, just like that, almost like Rob's transformation, but overnight transformation. Mine took a year, but seeing a little bit of progress is a really motivating thing. Isn't it, Rob?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. What you talked about is the community as well.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I own a gym, and when I walk into another gym, I'm insecure at that gym. It's like, that doesn't go away. That's you walk into, other than maybe a bar where everybody's drunk or something, but you walk into a church, you walk into a gathering of people that you don't know. It has nothing to do with the gym. I think people sign it off as like, it's already, I have to do hard things there, and now there's people staring at me when nobody's staring at you. It's like that spotlight theory. But that's the same thing. So I own a gym, but then we have a place, it's called Vasa. That's our big box gym that's kind of all over the nation. And I've just made a point to, when I see one guy training by himself, to go give him a spot, maybe just one set, introduce myself, come over. Dude, now I've got 20 guys that come say hi to me every time I walk through the door, that have come to my gym to train, that hit me up. And it's just people out there. It's another recovery room. Everybody's there fighting something off. And that's what I love so much about that. And then, like you talked about the confidence, you feel different. You see yourself different in the mirror. 2 things alone are like, yeah, I kind of liking that. I don't know what I'm doing that much, but I'm kind of liking this. And you said something else that was super important. 12 months. People think they're like, oh, I've got a cruise next month. I want a summer body. You should have started last year this time.
Yes.
Like you've got to be patient with yourself, just like you're patient in recovery, just like like it's baby steps. Like Joey said, how do you eat an elephant? It's the same. I can't do a push-up. Cool. Get on your knees and do 10 a day. Then do 20 the next week. Then do 30. And it's a simple build up. But especially nowadays, we see all these crazy videos on Instagram of these guys doing these insane workouts that you would never do in a million years. It's like, cool, you backflipped onto a yoga ball and flew off into a plank, into it. Like, why would you even do that? It makes no sense. Push-ups, squats, pull-ups, curls, like keep it old school. You're going to be just fine. So I think that fear of walking in there and not looking amazing in your yoga pants or looking massive or whatever, even the guys that look good are still insecure about something. So I find it just the same as, that first time you walk into an AA room and your sponsor tells you to speak and you black out in fear. I remember my sponsor like, if you don't share today, I'm not sponsoring you anymore. And it came around to me and I was like, pass. I was so scared. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I was going to talk about that. Here we are. You think about how destroyed our lives were. When's your sobriety date, Danny?
15th of September 2009.
That is awesome. Joey, when's yours?
August 20.
And mine's September 1st. So you think about the police, the courts, the suspensions, all these things, and now to be out of it and to be openly sharing what we love to do on multiple platforms and having a roof over our head, that's not even a question anymore. And like being of service, are you kidding me? You had to pay me to be of service before. Now that's like what fills my emotional bank account. Like that's more important than my actual bank account. When my soul's full, so's my bank. And the fitness is just a part of it. It's just like another medicine. It's like having your water in the day. If I don't start my day with some kind of activity, it goes bad. There's a million things that can get in the way that can, like, even 11 years in, 11 and a half, those anxieties, those am I good enough, those things can creep in when you're not doing what you can do. Like originally we tried to just do bare minimum, like Joey said. We're like, you know what? I'll do that tomorrow. I'm going to get a meeting tomorrow. Now we're at a place where we know we're capable of it. And I personally, I don't know how you guys feel, but when I have a lazy day that I know I could have got some things done, I feel guilty because there's some things that I could have been of service. I could have gone out and helped somebody. I could have gone and moved a tree. I could have, because while we can, we should. And when I speak to the kids and I'm trying to preach to them, like we were talking, Joey, you were saying, trying to get them to understand the pain thing is, I know they're going to go through life. I know life's going to hit them in the face. I just don't want them to ever say, well, I didn't know. I just want to give them what's really coming down the pipeline because mommy and daddy ain't, that. And society gives this view of everything's going to be okay. And there's actual safe spaces. That's not true. So you can drink, you can do drugs, you cannot handle your mental health, but this is what you're going to get with that. I don't care what your mom and dad say. This is how it really goes. And this is where those choices and decisions will take you. By all means, go try it, but don't say I didn't tell you. And that's kind of how it pans down for me is we're a real religious stronghold where I live. So we don't keep, you don't talk about the bad stuff. You just hold people accountable to walking the line. So for me, it's important that people know, look, bad things happen to good people. And depression isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of being strong for too long. It's okay to reach out for help. So that's just
that's cool, man.
That's really valuable. That's really valuable is like, one of the things that pain is guaranteed, right? And like one of the principles that I think that if we accept, will spare us a whole lot of pain in the future, and I fell short here dramatically, is that life isn't fair. I always expected life to be fair, and I got bent out of shape when it wasn't. But if I would have accepted that truth and really got to it, it's not fair. It's not fair to anybody. You eventually are going to get handed a shit sandwich, or you're going to get dealt, some sort of adversity, or you're going to have a disability, or you're going to have a relationship issue, or trauma, or death, or disease. Everybody has something. So like everybody has their own, as they say, cross to bear. And so like for me to expect me to coast through life, I was completely detached from reality. So when I got handed some, bad hands, and I made some bad choices, and I fell, and I failed, I folded my cards, and I became a victim. And there have been times when I have been victimized, but it's really my choice to live in victimhood. Like the only way that's one of the most disempowering states that there is being a victim. It doesn't mean that I wasn't victimized. It doesn't mean that I haven't forgiven anybody who may have victimized me. And most importantly, like forgiven myself, because there is nobody ever treated me worse than I treat me. So like that forgiveness needs to start with me. It always needs to start with self. Like if you want forgiveness, you have to start with self-forgiveness. If you want love, you have to start with self-love. If you want respect, you have to start with self-respect. It all starts with self.
Yeah, I like that, because that self-respect portion, and I just feel like if you're not treating yourself well, if you're not taking care of your own body, it's just kind of a little bit of a sign. I know there's some traumas, I know there's some injuries and things like that, but in general, if you're not too concerned about your health, and it's really come out with the coronavirus, right? You got that person that's 300 pounds with their mask yelling at you to put your mask on because they're worried about their health. And I just smile like, you should have thought about that long before this little virus came out. You're you've fed yourself cancers and diabetes and all these things for years and years and years. And now this magical virus is here, and you want everybody to walk the line, and that's it. I think it's really made people step outside, get real with themselves. Obviously suicide rates gone through the roof, relapse rates gone through the roof. But I think on the other side is it's really connected a lot of people again to the great outdoors, to their family, to being around their kids, to actually getting away from the phones and the TVs and getting outside, because it's easy if you call in sick to work and you don't go to work for 10 days. But when you're told you can't go to work for 10 days, it's kind of hard to sit there. I was like, 6 weeks? What am I going to do for 6 weeks? I'm like, yes, I don't have to work. I get to blame somebody for it. And I got like 3 days in, and I was like, can I open yet? Like, I kind of miss working. Like, yeah. It's weird to see the way things pan out. And I've done it even owning the gym. I've wavered in when I'm so busy taking care of everybody else. If I'm fat, so's my bank account, because I've been helping everybody else. And if I'm skinny, business isn't doing very good because I have time to work on myself. And I had to find that balance to just know that I didn't really understand what free time meant. Like, I have to take time for myself, especially being in a life coaching realm. Man, I got people coming at me all over the place. I just hit, luckily, 10,000 followers on my Instagram, which was a big deal. But with that comes 1,000 messages. It comes people needing you from all over the world, and crazy situations like life or death. And like, did you call 911? Well, no. Like, well, call 911 because, I need some time for myself. It's important. And that gym is my sanctuary. It's a place that I get to go and I get to be close. I feel the spirit. I feel closer to God mashing some weight than I ever did in a church.
Me too.
I feel connection.
Rob, tell us a bit more about what you do. Like you've got the gym. So you just touched on some life coaching stuff. Would you mind sharing with us how that all works? do?
Early in my recovery, right before my dad passed, he was a super successful guy. He came from nothing. He owned car dealerships. He was a state senator. He was the school board president. He was an amazing entrepreneur. And I always grew up feeling like I was going to be my dad. So I had a bit of an ego and was not a bit entitled. I was a lot entitled, and I didn't know what a dollar was worth. And as he was getting closer to the end, he pulled me aside and we had a conversation. And I asked him, I said, "Dad, how come you never let me fail?" And he sat there for a minute. He's like, "I saw your failures as I was failing, and I don't like to fail." And in that moment, we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about how that kept me from developing my own skills, like living in the shadows and being something that I could never live up to. And he said, "Well, there is one thing. You're a terrible employee, so you might want to figure out how to make your own money."
Yeah.
And when he said that, I went off and I worked at a restoration company, like cleaning up water damages and sewer damages and suicides and things like that. And I remember like keeping the job. And this is when you were in Utah, what I was doing, driving around in a green car, wearing a green outfit to work, like totally embarrassed. And I was also at the same time training people for free in a park at an elementary school. And I'd gone back to school and I was studying psychology because I couldn't afford, my dad had passed by this time, and I couldn't afford a therapist. So I got a free grant from the government to go back to school. And I only studied psychology because I wanted to know why I was so messed up.
Yeah.
So one of my professors, like, I told him my story, and he's like, "Write down the things that you struggle with in your life and study those." He's all, "You be your own rat, right? You study yourself, and then we'll talk weekly." And he kind of became my therapist at school. And I fell in love with psychology, and I fell in love with fitness, and I fell in love with putting the two together. Like I said earlier, teaching people how to do hard things in a safe environment. So I came up with this idea. I'm going to start a gym, and it's Eastman Fitness, right? But I didn't have a gym, and I didn't have any money. And I did have a watch that my dad bought me for graduation. It was a Rolex. It was worth some money. And I thought about it, and I was like, do I want this heirloom that it's the only thing I have left that my father gave me, or would he want me to sell it and follow my dreams? And the answer came pretty quick. He would want me to sell it and follow my dreams. And I went and I sold it for like $5,000. And I went and I spent all that money on rubber horse stall mats to put in a rubber floor in my mom's basement room that I could start my journey into Eastman Fitness. And as we always do, we have these grandiose ideas of how that's going to go. I was going to be training professional athletes. I was going to be seen on TV. And then shortly into that scene, I found out that all the athletes I knew didn't have any money, and that I would eventually end up training like 60-year-old women how to sit up and off the couch so that they could have a higher quality of life.
Yes.
So it got me into all these. I've trained older people with like recovering from injury and just keeping their quality of life higher. And then when I started cage fighting, they were televised, and they televised them on Sunday nights at the prison. So next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls from prisoners who want to come train with me. So now I'm like, I'm going to be a transition coach. So I'm first contact to these guys, gang members and things coming out of prison. So I got a real good understanding of the life there. And then I started working with adults just in a rehab setting, but doing my own intensive outpatient, but using my gym as rather than that was like rec therapy. We'd go and we'd hit the gym. I'd sign them up for a race, or we'd sign them up for a cage fight, or, doing all of these different athletic things to kind of get them out of their comfort zone. And now fast forward another 8 years, I'm 11 years into this deal. I have a huge youth following because I figured, man, I spent a lot of time on intervention when I could put my hard-earned time and knowledge into prevention. And what I've gotten back from the youth is priceless. Being the coach, I became the student. I've learned more from these kids, and they're just unwavering questions, and they look up to me like a superhero, and little do they know they're the superheroes in the story. And so to be able to work on all these different spectrums, and I'm in my state, I'm the only non-clinician ran program accepted by the courts. Like I've gone up and beyond all of the, you have to have a degree, you have to have this, you have, like, I don't have any of that, and they all know me, they all love me, and they all send me people.
That's amazing.
And then I was married, and my stepson, he was playing baseball, and at the time I'm cage fighting. And sitting at a double header of baseball and being a cage fighter can get pretty boring. So I'm like, son, it's fun to see if you might get up and if you might get a catch, but how about we try another sport? And he recommended wrestling because he knew I kind of liked that. And so I went to the school that he was at, and I volunteered. And this is big for addiction. I went in, and they're like, yeah, you can't be here. You've got to have a background check and get your fingerprints. And at this time, I'm 4 years sober. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I go in, I get all that done. And the guy tells me, you'll hear back in the next 2 weeks, and then you can start coaching. I was like, cool. I heard back the next day, and it said, thanks, but no thanks.
You're bad.
And I was just instantly retract back into that fear, shame, feeling judged, sorry for myself, pity party. And then I gathered myself up. I printed off my report. I made an appointment with the guy that said no. I went in, I passed it across his desk. I said, where would you like to start? And I shared my story, and he was teary-eyed by the end, and he stamped it approved, and he said, we need more coaches like you. Yeah. And that started I now have been in the school districts for 8 years. I'm the head coach at a high school and head coach at a junior high for wrestling. And they brought me into volleyball. I coach girls volleyball. I speak in the classes. They gave me my own classroom for 3 years, working with the tough kids that have either been on drugs or had severe trauma, and being in there and teaching them how to play chess or how to write raps rather than doing math and English. I had my principal come in. He's like, these kids are failing. And I looked at him. I said, do you know why they're failing? It's like these kids, they don't think 5 moves down the road. They're just living in survival. Mom and dad are passed out on the couch when they come home, and they have to take care of the newborn baby at 14. Like, these kids are in survival. So what does chess teach you how to do? Think a few moves ahead. He's like, keep teaching. He's like, thank you. So I've just had these amazing, like, unreal experiences in using my biggest fails and all the things that we fear other people might find out have made me 6 figures a year for the last 6. It's like I have to pinch myself daily to just remind myself to stay humble, or God's going to do it for me. But my week, for a lot of people, they're like, your week looks like my bucket list. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
I live on a farm. I have horses and goats and chickens, and we skydive and we rock climb and we fight and we ride dirt bikes. And it's just, I can't even, what has happened in my life from recovery, like even on my best day, imagining where my life would be, I'm so far past that. Like, it wasn't even on the same spectrum.
Yeah.
So I don't want to brag. I don't want to, like, I'm pretty dumb. So if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody here listening can do it. But it's just that doing the next right thing. They say that a lot in recovery. Do the next right thing. It's like, we all know right from wrong. We can all do our best and make progress. And it's just the consistency. And that's whether that's fitness. I just find that I'm taught and learn easier when I'm in physical pain. It's like jujitsu is a great teacher when you're getting choked and they're telling you, breathe. I'm like, what if this dude's hand wasn't across my throat? But when you find that calm in the storm and can just get through it, I'm just feel super blessed. And, to be able to come on and share these stories with you guys and podcast. And it's just, it's an amazing time to live.
I feel really inspired by your story, Rob. That's amazing. And you're right, absolutely. And I have experienced the same. That anything is possible in recovery, you know. And you have such a great example of that. And again, like that's you. But let's also acknowledge that you've had a good run too. You know, good on you. Like, and so you should be extremely proud of that too. And I think the more effort we put in, like sometimes I'm afraid to take those next steps, but you took some pretty drastic steps to get where you are, and I say fucking good shit, man. That's mad.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just feel like a lot of people are just sitting there one step away from doing something they've always wanted to do, but they're afraid of the no or afraid that it might fail. So that brings me into mentorship, is surrounding yourself with some dudes that never would tell you to do something that was going to harm you. So I'll take my bright ideas to these amazing men and women that mentor me, and I accept, you know, I want them to poke holes in my ideas so that when I actually do act on it, that it's solid, I'm confident, and the people around me are also confident. That makes a big difference when your team is like, yeah, what are you waiting for? Let's go. It's like, okay, I can do this.
It's that thing, and we say it regularly. It takes hard work, doesn't it? We can't just get given this stuff. You know what I mean? You need to work hard for it. But when we work hard, we can do anything. You know?
Yeah, the win or the taste isn't as sweet when it's given.
Nah, no way.
It's like in the struggle is the success. Like I thrive in those tough situations. It's like I've got all my armor tattooed on, right? It's like people are like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's my armor to remind me what I'm fighting for. My mental health, my best friend who committed suicide tattooed on my forearms, all the people that didn't get to live like I live, and just get up and grind." And I love it. I love it.
Boys, we got a couple more minutes, Joey. We got anything else to cover?
Oh man, there's this. You know, thank you, Rob, for sharing so much and showing us, you know, that human potential is endless, and I just love it, and I love watching you win, and I hope you inspired people here today. There's a lot that both of you said that I want to talk about, and I think the most important thing, and because we are running low on time and we like to wrap up the show, sharing, you know, with our viewers, you know, a tip, a tool, an exercise, or a hack that we use to generate gratitude in our lives. But, you know, well, I don't remember who said it, but what you said, you know, when people ask me, who am I, right? It's an interesting question. So, and you both touched on it at different points. We are what we pay attention to. And then Rob says, we are what we do when nobody's watching. So like, that's who we are. And the great part about it is we get to choose, because we could choose like our thoughts, right? Because our thoughts are what generate our actions and our behaviors, and our actions and our behaviors generate our emotions, and our emotions, you know, create our experiences, and our experiences create our life. So if we boil it back down to the thoughts, like I am what I pay attention to, and I can't control the thoughts, but I can control which ones that I'm latching onto and which ones that I'm following and which ones that I'm not. And that first starts with awareness, right? I need to be aware of which thoughts are lies and which thoughts are truth, which are one of my lower nature and which is one of my higher nature. So, you know, I really like that you both hit on that. And, you know, and also like the number one thing that I see that causes the most suffering in all humans, and, you know, people who suffer with depression or active addicts or anybody with addictive behaviors, this is a human thing. And I think is the cause of most suffering. And one of the reasons why I chose alcohol and drugs as my solution to life is comparing and judging, comparing myself with others, comparing my insides with other people's outsides. Always comparing. Comparing is what causes all the pain. So if you know, I was thinking, you know, before the show of, you know, what I could share, something that I've been trying to implement in my life. And I failed miserably before the show because I had a crazy day today. You know, I got thrown all kinds of curveballs, and I've committed to eating one mindful meal a day, meaning that like I'm gonna put the food in front of me. I'm gonna smell it. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna enjoy the colors and the textures. I'm gonna chew it slow. I'm gonna, try to think about, everything that had to fall into place to get this food onto my table. Like, who grew the food, the sun, the water, the soil, who picked the food, or however it is, who packaged it and shipped it, the money that I was able to, that I was gifted to be able to buy it. And I just went, I inhaled the food. I was in a rush and I failed miserably. But when I do that, and it's something that I'm trying to, because typically I don't overeat anymore, but I look as food as fuel. So I'm like, let me get in this fuel so I can go harder. And so I think it's an important exercise in order to express gratitude, is to eat one mindful meal a day. And hey, you know what? I'll tomorrow's another day. I'll give it a shot. But I have strung together a couple wins in that area, and it's important that we identify where we win and we set ourselves up to win. And when we fall short, which we all will, like, to give ourselves permission to be human and just try again, So one mindful meal a day. Don't do what I do what I say. That's a rhyme.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I spent some time with a young man that's a life coach down in Vegas, and they're straight vegan, super like Buddhist belief, mindfulness all the time. And I don't know if you've eaten vegan before, but you got to kind of be mindful about what you're eating. I was checking it out, but really taking that time and like, we went to Nepal in 2017. I went to Mount Everest Base Camp. So being around the Buddhist people, it's like their goal is to let go of everything. It's not to hold on to anything. And to be around that, to see that, where Americans are just, we want to consume everything. We need to have $1,000 phones and be sad because of it. And we have so much, yet we're so sad. And I'm sitting in these villages in the high mountains of the Himalayas, and these kids have nothing, and they were so pumped. And I'm just like, man, really, maybe it really is about being a minimalist, about not being attached to anything, enjoying the journey. So since that time, I've really focused on life as a journey, not a destination. No matter how much money you make, no matter what girl you have. And I was going to show you my girl, but she's hot, but she was dyeing her hair. So that's off the table. But the car, that somehow you'll be happy when you have that is a lie. That is a consumer lie. It's not true. I know a ton of sad millionaires. So being appreciative of who you are, what you are, even if you're not where you want to be, but the fact that you're trying to get there, like, that's my hack is, you can come take my car. I don't care. I made it once. I'll get it again. I don't need it. I can run far. I can, like, all of these.
Did we lose them?
Sitting with two amazing men like you guys, being able to share our fails and to share our successes and to learn from each other. It's like, I used to want to be the guy in the room, and now I don't care to be. Like, I love being the student. I love not being right all the time. I love being able to learn something from a little 2-year-old that says something funny, and to be mindful enough to hear those messages. So that's my big thing, is the journey way more than the destination. Because for me, everything in my life has been a false summit. I arrived and then I'm like, shit, there's another peak. Like, so I just don't even worry about it. Time with my daughter. Any of us could die at any moment, losing my dad suddenly, all these different things. Like, if I cared about anybody in my life or the people that I'm with, I should be present when I'm with them. And it just makes it a little easier to put my phone down and feel the vibes, So
I love it. What about you, Danny?
Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Joey, mate. I love both of them too. Both of your suggestions, your hacks, your tips. I'm actually going to make some protein pancakes. Just 3 eggs, a scoop of protein, a banana, and whip that up with some Greek yogurt straight after the show because I'm starving. But so I will take my time with that, and I'll acknowledge where it's coming from. And Rob, you just reminded me about how wonderful it is to ask questions as well. Like we need help. Like put ourselves out there. It's a good tool that I learned in recovery, and I guess another thing that we touched on in this episode is building a community. Like we talked about the gym, Rob, and being part of that community at the gym. It's incredibly important to me to have a life outside of just recovery. And it didn't come quickly either. Please acknowledge, like it took me some time to do that. But today I do have that life outside of recovery, and I've got this community. And the way I keep and build that community is by being brave and saying hello, giving someone a spot, like you said, Rob, every single day. I do that stuff. You know, I had the owner of my gym, Camping Out Fitness, training me today, and it was just by coincidence, and it was just because we chatted and I asked him one question. He stuck around for 45 minutes, killed me for 45 minutes, but I'm so glad. I love being part of a community, you know, and my fellowship recovery, I have a most amazing community that I take advantage of all the time. So yeah, guys, be brave, put yourself out there, ask questions, eat healthy, and try to be a better version of myself, I guess, a day at a time.
I love
That's
it.
beautiful. Thank guys. Yeah, I think it's no matter what it is that you're trying to accomplish, to get it into a community with people with a common problem and a common solution is the way to go.
All right, guys,
Wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up. Hang around for a sec, Rob. We'll just
Joey, thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks
I love
everyone
you.
for
I'll see
joining.
you Tuesday,
thank
right?
you too, Joey. Good stuff. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Stay on there
Anytime.
for a sec, Rob.